World champion speakers use when composing a speech. If you have, my fellow champion speaker wanderers, this speech is for you. About a year ago, Janet and I attended a Toastmasters sponsored event in the area. World champion speakers Ed Tate and Darren LaCroix were there sharing their tricks of the trade. Today, Janet and I will be performing 3 mini speeches. The way we will do this is first we will recite one speech without the tricks. We'll turn around and then perform it again with the tricks. And this is where the audience comes in. We will then ask you what tricks you noticed. For example, a year ago, we were told to bring an introduction to any speech. Janet was prepared and was lucky enough to get called up to the front of the room. Before she could get through the first sentence, she was stopped. Why, you ask? Well, we'll find out in this first mini speech entitled, Don't Burn. Janet.
Thank you, Brian. Skin cancer affects many of us. 20% of Americans will develop skin cancer sometime in their life. If we live to be 65, 50% of us will get squamous cell or basal cell skin cancer. 9,000 people die of melanoma each year. Have you ever had a bad sunburn when you were a child or in your adolescence? If you have, you've more than doubled your chance of getting melanoma. There's things you can do to avoid skin cancer. Avoid the sun, use sunscreen, and check your skin. How many of you check your skin? Skin cancer is not only deadly, it's expensive. In 2010 alone, it cost $2.3 billion to fight melanoma. May I please have from Alex to Ty stand up? These people standing here represent the percentage of us in this room that will get skin cancer in our lifetime. May I please have the 5 of you also stand up? And the gentleman that had Anjali. Thank you. If we're lucky enough to live to age 65, this is how many of us, the percentage of us in this room, that is going to get squamous or basal cell skin cancer in our lifetime. Please be seated. In the time that it takes for this meeting to complete, 1 person in the U.S. will die of melanoma. How many of you have ever had a sunburn when you were a child or an adolescent? If you have, you more than doubled your chances of getting melanoma. There's things you can do to avoid getting skin cancer. Avoid the sun, put on that sunscreen, and check your skin. How many of you check your skin? Skin cancer is not only expensive, deadly, but it's expensive. And what it cost in 2010 to combat melanoma, you could have purchased every Major League Baseball team. Okay, what was the difference?
Audience participation.
That was one.
A lot of questions, just engaging.
That's a big one, and that's why I was slammed. I got up, I did a speech, I got my first sentence out. How many a science fair, something about their science fair in their childhood? Boom! I went on to my next sentence, and I didn't give them appropriate amount of time to go back into their elementary school years. When you ask a question, which is great, make sure the amount of pause. Did you notice the first time again? How many of you have had a sunburn? Well, if you did, and I didn't give you enough chance. I mean, people like Greg are still going back into childhood, adolescence. Sorry, Greg. Have a sunburn. So make the pause appropriate enough for them to reflect. The second question I asked, do you check your skin? Well, I didn't need that long. I didn't know whether you check your skin or not. So that was one thing. The other thing that I was doing was, they said was very important, is make those numbers I was spouting at first, 20%, 50%, 65. Make the numbers be human. Draw them into human things. One way is have people participate. like you had mentioned, Steve. The other way is tying them, like I did, to purchasing every Major League Baseball team. Some of us, like Greg, know that's billions of dollars. So make the numbers work for you, make your pauses appropriately reflect the question asked. Now I'd like to introduce Brian with his mini speech, The Phone Call.
The other day, my phone rang. I noticed it was the school calling. When the school calls, I need to answer. It could be the teacher, it could be the school nurse, or worse, the principal. I answered the phone. It was the school counselor. She told me that my son was at lunch and was talking about something that made a lot of kids upset. In fact, some of them cried. She told me that he was talking about the end of the world. She then asked me if I knew anything about that. Let me take you back to the other day. My phone rings. I look down and I notice it's a school call. Oh, is it their teacher, the school nurse, the principal again? Hello? Hello, Mr. Lawrence. This is the school counselor. Okay, hi, how are you? It's okay, Mr. Lawrence, everything is fine. I wanted to tell you something today. Something happened in the lunchroom. Something happened in the lunchroom. Okay, go on. Mr. Lawrence, Caleb made some kids cry today. Cry? Yes, he was talking about the end of the world, Mr. Lawrence. Do you happen to know anything about this, Mr. Lawrence? So, audience, what was one thing you noticed between the first and the second?
Gestures.
Gestures is one.
Vocal variety interaction.
So a lot. You just didn't notice a lot of different things. Prop, okay. So all that we could call dialogue. That's true, vocal variety. Dialogue is what we were looking for with that. Anything else?
You gave us more of a setting in the second.
Exactly, exactly. So the real big difference, dialogue is one of them. And then this other one is a little harder to detect. It was really telling in the past versus the present. So the second time, I gave the present. And of course I use dialogue. It engages the audience. You feel like you're part of what's going on, and it really brings that story. Think back to the first time. I told you what happened. It was good, some humor, a little more boring. So that's what we were shooting for, dialogue in past versus present. Now, our second and last, our third mini speech, Janet with Mr. Smedley.
Over 110 years ago, a man was born whose lives affect all of ours in this room. His name is Ralph C. Smedley, and he's the founder of Toastmasters International. Ralph was born in the Midwest, and he grew up and got a job at the local Y. Why at the Y, he noticed that some of the young men there needed help with their public speaking skills, so he started a club. Ralph would travel for his job, get transferred around, start new clubs. When Ralph left, the club would fold. Eventually, he landed in Santa Ana, California. That club thrived. Men came from all over the area, and they would ask Ralph how to start clubs of their own. They'd start clubs, and Toastmasters International was born. That Santa Ana club is still club #1 today. Ralph dedicated his life to Toastmasters. He wrote books and manuals, and eventually Ralph passed away at age 87. But he still remembered, back at the Santa Ana club, they'd put a chair out at each meeting, an empty chair, with Ralph's picture and the original bylaws. They remember his inspiration. And what started at the local Y, with some young boys trying to help with their public speaking skills, has turned into an organization over 300,000 members in 122 countries. Yes, we're all tied back to this man, Ralph C. Smedley, who had his goal of helping the leadership and communication skills build each one of the members, one member at a time. 110 years ago, a man, Ralph C. Smedley, was born. His life affects all of us in this room. He's the founder of Toastmasters International. Ralph, he was a dedicated man. He was born in the Midwest and got a job at a local Y. While he was here at this local Y, he saw that the young men there needed help with their public speaking skills, which I do. So he started a public speaking club. But Ralph would get transferred around for his jobs. When he'd start a new club and leave the area, the club would fold. But Ralph, he was dedicated. Finally, he landed in Santa Ana, California. There he started a club that thrived. Men came from all neighboring areas and asked Ralph, how did I start a new club? They started them. Toastmasters International was born. This Santa Ana club is club #1 today. Ralph, he was dedicated. He dedicated his life to Toastmasters International. He wrote books and manuals throughout his life until Ralph passed away and was laid to rest at the age of 87. But Ralph's dedication is remembered. Back at the Santa Ana Club, he put up a chair every night when they have a Toastmaster meeting with a picture of dear old Ralph and the original bylaws, so they can remember his inspiration and dedication. Ralph, he was dedicated. What started out at this local Y to help a few boys with their public speaking skills has turned into an organization of over 300,000 members in 122 countries. Ralph was dedicated. This man, Ralph C. Smedley, had a goal of changing each member into better communicators and leaders, one member at a time. What was different?
You used all of my favorite techniques.
Like, name one.
Well, you used the movement to chronology to
And what they
chronology.
called that, what the masters called that was holographic imagery. I think that if I stand here, where am I at? No, the Y. If I stand here, where am I at? Santa Ana Club. If I'm here,
You're in grade.
That's great.
he said so much so that if somebody said, and we decided to have a Toastmaster picnic and laid out the blanket, he said the audience went, because this is the sacred site, or burial site. You already had that locked in your image. So with fewer words and a way to connect better with the audience, you can use your placeholders. The second thing I did is I used transitional phrase. It was a mini speech, so it was a little phrase. Ralph was dedicated. That got me to my spots. Dedication was remembered. So transitional phrases, holographic imagery, and I put in quite a few more gestures. I'm going to turn it back over to Brian. You're going to wrap things up.
Yes, I am. So in conclusion, we looked at and we examined different tricks of the trade. We examined, first thing, dialogue. We examined questions and pause to reflect. We examined, what else did we examine? We examined past versus present, when I answered the phone versus answering the phone. We examined holograms from the death of Mr. Smedley to the Santa Ana Club to the YMCA. We examined transitional phrases. Ralph was dedicated. And finally, we examined gestures. And I hope all of you are dedicated to improving your speaking ability. With these tricks of the trade, Janet and I would like to challenge each one of you to use one or two of these tricks in your next speech or table topics answer.
If you have the opportunity to ever hear a public speaking master or champion, take it. They come out in our emails pretty often. And bring back some of the tricks of the trade that you learned to our club.
Ms. Toastmaster?